Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are learning about brush techniques. We have so many watercolor brushes and maybe you're confused where to use which one and which one would be better in what kind of condition. So we were going to discuss that today. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, also like this video, and don't forget to visit my Patreon site, patreon.com/ecegüller for more tutorials. Let's talk about brushes. Before the brushes, I want to show you the sponge I used. This is normal dishwashing sponge. I just cut it in a square and I'm using it. You can use different sponges for different effects. This is number 3, very big brush from Artify. I don't use it for my watercolor, but I use it to sweep eraser bits or colored pencil bits. Here are my round brushes. You can see that their numbers are 7 and 11 and their bristles are in a round shape. Here you see my liner script brush number 1. I will talk to you in a second about where we use all these brush types and how we can get the best out of them. Here is my number 3. It's a natural round brush, and this is my tiny detail brush. You can see my small brushes right here. They are different sizes and I use them for different purposes. Now let's talk about angular ones. This is number 4 and number 12. One is obviously very big. And you can see the angle here, and in the small one you can see right here. Number 6, number 2, and number 10, these are my flat brushes. They are different sizes. Here we go. This is number 8 and it is filbert brush. You can see there is like an arch in the top. And this is our fan brush, of course. It explains itself. It's number 5. And my favorite, it's a mop brush, the Vinci brand, and number 2. Here are my brush pens, and brush pens are technically brushes, but they have water in them. This is stencil type of bristle, and you can see the water inside. There's just this air bubble moving. Basically, you just squeeze it and then the water comes out, so you can dilute your paint like that in a very easy way. Now, I want to show you the 2 round brushes and what we can do with them. Number 11 one I'm going to start with, and you can see that on the paper I'm getting support from my hand and I'm drawing this very straight line like that. And when I apply the pressure, you can see that they are getting a more oval shape. Another thing you can do is basically big leaf shapes, but they're not going to end up with a very thin line in the end. Here I will show you how it looks when you do spirals. Let's do the number 7 now. It's a little bit smaller round brush. They are perfect for leaves. I love to do leaves with them. And also, of course, you can have a thinner straight line with them if you apply pressure. And if you do spirals, you get all different kinds of shapes. With this type of brush, if you use the tip of it, you can get really fine lines. And you can use it to do some tree branches like this. Here I have my number 1 liner, and I'm going to show you how you can get very tiny branches with this. It is even tinier than number 7. You can see that you can have very little details with this brush. It's amazing. Look at the difference. And now the other 2 brushes that I have, they are the detail brushes. This is number 3, which I used very often. As you can see, you can get very fine lines with it. And even the smaller one right now, I'm going to show you how small you can go if you want details in your watercolor painting. How do you like it? Tiny, tiny little house. Okay, so this is now big brush. Number 12, we have the angler brush. You can see if you do this kind of spirals, you get really nice effect. Maybe you can use it in different kind of, abstract paintings, or even maybe hair if you're working on a very big painting. And of course, because of the angle we have, you can have all these straight lines. And if you use the corner of it, you can have very thin lines instead. Let's see what the small angular one does. And you can see that it creates this kind of fork if you use less water, and if you use more water, you can see that it's basically the smaller version of the bigger angular one. You can create corners, you can create edges. This is perfect for this. Let's talk about the flat one. So I have the biggest flat one. I usually do bricks with these if I have any buildings around. And if you use it like this on the thinner side, then you can get some water reflections, or you can even have sunset. It is great for that. Now let's talk about the two other flat brushes. We have natural flat and we have comb. As you can see, this natural flat one, when you apply straight, it creates a perfect straight line, and for the spirals too, it's like medium thickness, and you can use it in trees and in reflections like this when you use the thinner side horizontally. And this is a smaller one. As you can see, there's no difference, it's just getting smaller and thinner. Let's talk about filbert. Filbert is different. Because of the arched shape of bristles, it has a different structure. So it is perfect to do, for example, flowers with that, because they will be perfect petals. And also you can do many other shapes with them, such as ears in the portraits, rounded shaped trees, or even eyes. You can use in many different places like this. One thing to pay attention to, if you draw a straight line, you will see that when it ends with a curve. And also here, look at this, I'm doing free forms, and that reminded me of curly hair. If you're making a portrait, you can use this brush to make curly hair. Now let's talk about fan brush. Fan brushes are fun. You can only use one part of it if you want, or you can dip the whole brush and see what happens. So you can have kind of rain effect with that, or if you apply all of them together on your paper, you can get this bush looking structure, or you can even use it in a horizontal way to create some water reflections, or even just like a plain area with grass. You can use it perpendicular too in order to make other types of trees, for example, a pine tree. Let me show you my brush pen. My brush pen has stencil. You can see that the water is coming off, and I am just applying some blue paint with it, and you can see that it's not different than my natural flat brush. When I squeeze water though, you can see that I can use the excessive water right there and then, instead of going and dipping it into two different cups. So that's the power we have with the brush pens. Let's talk about my favorite, the mop brush. It is my favorite because I can get any shape, any thickness with them. Look at this. By using just the tip of it, I can have very tiny lines or curls. And when I apply pressure, suddenly I can have these leaf shapes, perfect drop shapes. And if I release the pressure, as you can see, it gets so thin towards the end. So this is great. Also, I can have a very thick line like this and very thin lines like this, as if I'm doing the branches of a tree. So definitely this brand is amazing, Da Vinci. I highly recommend. So let's talk about the sponge now. I'm just dipping it into my water, I'm squeezing it, and I'm dipping it on my paint. After I got enough paint on it, as you can see, I'm applying on my paper. It depends on you how much you want to apply on it, and if you spread it like this, you can get structures that look like a tree trunk, for example. Now I want to show you how I use these brushes in an application. I am making a lighthouse, a beautiful lighthouse. I start with my mop brush. I use my mop brush to wet my paper because I'm doing wet on wet method. And after that, I'm going to apply the blue sky with my mop. Mop brushes are great in these large areas. And remember, it has a fine tip, so when I get closer to the lighthouse, I can get a fine detail there. After that, I want to show you how I used my round brush, number 11. I will try to do the dry grasses with this round brush with you. I'm going to use my brown and yellow ochre. Here you see that I did wet on wet method too. For wet on wet method, I like my number 11 round brush as well. Now with my smaller round brush, I added all these grass details. So for details, I prefer the smaller round brush, of course. Here I have my angular small brush, and I'm planning to do the roof with that because I can have perpendicular lines, angular lines easily with this brush. See, I am trying to do the roof right now, and it's helping me so much with the corners and the edges. I cannot get this much detail with my round brushes. Maybe I can, but it would take me much longer. Here I have another flat brush. It's my natural flat, and I'm going to do the walls with that. Here I don't have the angle on my brush, but I have a flat brush, so it's going to help me a lot while I'm doing the vertical lines and horizontal lines, just like this. Of course, our house has some type of shadows. There's a tree, and tree casts a shadow on it, and also one wall is darker than the other one. I'm going to give that again with my flat brush. As you can see right now, I'm doing the shadow of the tree by using the side of my brush. With flat brush, you can also do the sea. Look, I'm doing the waves by just applying horizontal strokes. Here is the time to use my fan brush. I just dipped it into my green paint, and I'm doing a tree, a beautiful tree right here. I just spoke like Bob Ross, love it. Once it dries, you can go in with different shades of green with the same fan brush. And with the sponge, I dipped it in green again, and look, I'm adding some bushes here for you. Later, I'm going to add some yellow because I think yellow looks really great on this kind of green. I will finish the tree later with my number 2 brush. Now, this is a detail brush, so I'm doing the lighthouse details with number 2 brush. You can see that I dipped it in beautiful red, and I started to build my lighthouse. I will add all the details here with my small brush. I cannot get in here with my big brush, so definitely I need my small brush there. But in the sky, for example, there's no point in wetting the paper with the small brush because it's going to take forever, and by the time you get to the bottom, the top will be dry already. As you can see, I'm adding with my detail brush all these different greens into the tree with random strokes. I am also adding wave details with the same brush. I think they called it detail brush for a reason. Again, I got my fan brush. This time I am dipping it in brown because I want to do this brown tall grasses here. And I'm going to apply it all the way down to the right. I'm just applying my brush from bottom to top to give a natural grass look. And of course, I'm applying them to different directions to give them a natural look. I am adding the details with the detail brush to my lighthouse. I used all my brushes, as you can see, so once we finish with this, I will show you one technique with ink. Here I have my black ink pen, and I am basically contouring. I'm going over the borders. I am making all these details a little bit more obvious by just contouring them with my black ink very carefully because we can't erase it obviously. And with watercolor, we can go over it to cover our mistakes. So let's be careful. Some people even use rulers. I didn't do it here, but you can if you want to. This is a very nice technique. Ink goes so well with watercolor. A lot of artists use them together, and especially if you're painting buildings, I highly recommend this technique. And also I'm going to add some random circular motions into the tree and the bushes, and finished. I hope you liked this video and you found it helpful, guys. Please share your comments in the comment section. See you in my next video. Bye! Thanks for watching my video. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. And for my real-time narrated tutorials, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/ecegürler. Stay with art and love.